Go.
Hi, my name is Eberhardt and I'm presenting for Chem 110 Lab. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about how food preservatives work and then the history behind them. And so I have the example of the McDonald's French fries. So I feel like most people have seen the video of the guy who talks about how they never go bad and how they never deteriorate. Well, obviously food preservatives are working behind that. So to get the purpose of them, obviously they're to keep food fresh, to keep food on the shelf longer, prevent food cost, food waste, prevent food from going bad, to make it taste better. So it does this by decreasing, preventing, and killing the microorganisms, so bacteria, yeast, mold, all the gross stuff that appears on food if it's been sitting out for too long or if it's gone bad. So some of the higher risk foods would be like milk, dairy, meats, cheeses, fruits, vegetables, stuff like that. So then food preservatives can enter in these foods through production, herbicides, pesticides, packaging, and like the process of food getting to the shelf. So to give a little bit about the history, so according to Dr. Anderson, who works with the Science Communication Center at Michigan State, he said that it all started in the 14th century. So people used salt or NaCl to draw the water and H2O out of food. And so this works because the bacteria and the yeast and the mold and other microorganisms need water to carry out their life-sustaining actions. So obviously the water's taken out so they can no longer do that, so they die. And then in 1962, the E system was created. So the E system is basically just how people label the food and the chemicals that are being put into them. It's just easier than listing out all of the chemicals, so they just do it in the E system. And then in the future, it's expected that food preservatives are likely to increase as genetically modified food increases and how we have more food on the shelves for longer. So there's two types, there's natural and then there's synthetic. So natural would be like salts, sugars, like the canning process, like pickled foods, sauerkraut, stuff like that. So those are extracted from nature, and then synthetic would be like chemicals, man-made stuff, so antimicrobials, antioxidants, stuff like that. Okay, so why does food go bad? So food goes bad because enzymes that naturally occur in the food act as catalysts for the microorganisms. So catalyst acts to speed up the reactions in the microorganisms, which causes them to reproduce and causes food to go bad more quickly. So this also causes proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids to get broken down into smaller molecules. So when this process happens, gases, odors, liquids, the stuff that makes food noticeably bad gets released. So that's how we know food is going bad. So an example would be like the discoloration of the mold in the bread over there would be because of that. So then another thing that happens is the oxidation of food. So this is when oxygen gets or becomes present in the food, which causes the loss of an electron. And this also causes food to have like bad odors, smells, taste, because it's interfering with that. And then two of the main reasons why it's so important that we know food is going bad and that we prevent it is obviously foodborne illnesses. You don't want people getting sick from not being able to eat food because it's gone bad on the shelves. So a couple of examples of like the little nasty things that can be in our food. Obviously you don't want to eat those and ingest them. And then another thing is it creates unpleasant features. You don't want to eat food if it's like slimy and brown and gross. Like nobody wants that. Okay, and then the ideal substances for food preservatives are obviously water soluble because you want them to absorb into the food and absorb into your body. And then non-toxic because you're ingesting them so you don't want them to be harmful to you. And then lastly, you want a high thermal resistance because if food is out in the sun, you don't want the preservatives to cause the food to go bad. Okay, so one of the common ones is sulfur dioxide, which is SO2. So this forms sulfites when it's dissolved in the water, and then the sulfites cause the disulfide bonds in proteins, and it causes them to break. So it doesn't allow this bond to completely form, which inhibits the enzyme activity. So since that's working, bacteria can't get reproduced. And it also causes the intercellular pH to increase because that interferes with the proton motive force-driven mechanisms in the bacteria, which causes them to stop reproduction. And this also prevents like the browning of food specifically. And then that's a photo of the makeup of it by Pumpkin. And then another one is nitrate, which is NO3-. So this stops the germination or the reproduction of bacteria. And it does this by preventing ATP synthesis. So ATP synthesis is obviously a necessary interaction that has to happen in the cells of bacteria for life to be formed. So when it stops ATP synthesis, it stops bacteria from doing this. So it does this by nitric acid reacts with iron sulfide enzymes, which is specifically ferredoxin, and it does this by preventing this ATP from being produced. So this is an example of the electron transport chain, and Nitric acid does this, and it stops the chain from being able to produce the ATP, hence the bacteria dies. And it works specifically with the bacteria Clostridium rotationum, which is found on food. And then a couple other connections is that the government has a lot of regulations and tests and protocols that these preservatives have to go through, because obviously you don't want them to be harmful to people. And then the Cleveland Clinic suggests you limit your intake of food preservatives, specifically nitrates and sulfates, because it can cause a lot of health issues if you have too much of them. So a couple of the positives would be food waste is decreased, and then nutrients. So if you're putting chemicals into your body, they obviously have different materials and minerals and ions that your body can absorb, and it can be very helpful for nutrition. And then obviously food safety increases because you're not getting as many foodborne illnesses because you're preventing them. So then a couple of the negatives is that food preservatives can be very harmful in large amounts. You're putting foreign stuff into your body, and it's breaking down bacteria, so it can also break down some of the stuff that's happening in your body. So specifically, nitrates produce nitrosaminides, which when they react with the stomach acid and the heat in your body, it can cause cancer, which isn't good. And then, just to kind of sum everything up, so food preservatives can be dangerous if you take them in large amounts, but the FDA regulates them and makes sure that there's enough that like food won't go bad, but you also won't be harmed. And then there's natural and synthetic. So synthetic would be like the man-made, man-made, and then like chemicals, and natural would be like stuff that you can find in the earth. So I have an example of food that's gone bad. So obviously there's like mold, discoloration, bacteria on this. So food preservatives work to stop the enzyme activity in these, and they take away the stuff that bacteria needs to survive and to grow and to live, the living essentials. They take away the characteristics needed for that, which causes the bacteria to die. So those are just some of the references that I used throughout my presentation. That's it. Thank you.